Should the Royals be playing Freddy Fermin more than just a few times a week? We'll dive into it next on Locked On Royals.
You are Locked On Royals, your daily Kansas City Royals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for tuning in to another edition of Locked On Royals on the Locked On Podcast Network. As always, I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can find me on Twitter or X at JohnnyJ_15. That's at JOHNYJ_15. You also can catch us on wherever you get your podcasts. That can be Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts. We're on Odyssey, and we're on YouTube. Just be sure to hit that follow button and subscribe. If you want to know a little bit more about me and this show, well, I am based here in Kansas City. I work over at Sports Radio 810 WHB, do some hosting, co-hosting, and some producing as well. And as far as this podcast, you get it 5 times a week, Monday through Friday, unless we have some sort of schedule conflict. We're pretty much bringing you 30 minutes of Royals baseball every single day except for the weekend. Questions and comments can always be left to me on YouTube or on Twitter. And today's show is brought to you by Tax Network USA. They're one of our newer sponsors here, but very proud to have them along. We'll talk about them coming up in about 10 to 15 minutes or so. I'm glad that today, this Thursday evening or late afternoon show, I can bring you a little bit more enthusiasm, a little bit more optimism, because if the Royals would have blown the series finale today against Oakland, it would have taken a lot for me to do an episode today. I still would have done it. I wouldn't have enjoyed it because I told you last night, there are times that it's just not the most fun to do an episode, but we do it anyway because we know that there are people out there listening that want to go back and forth with the Royals, that want to hear somebody rant, that want to hear somebody be positive about the team. Well, today I can tell you that even with this atrocity of a series, as terrible as it was to watch, it feels damn good to walk away with at least one win. And I can't believe I'm saying that after a series against the Oakland Athletics, but it happens, right? And the most important thing is the Royals didn't let that game slip away. There was a moment that I think a lot of past Royals teams would have let the game completely slip away, and it was on that double down the line by Abraham Toro, and the A's decided to try to get the go-ahead run at the plate, send him no red light whatsoever, just trying to have a backup catcher score from first, and the Royals gunned him down. Moments later, Bobby Witt Jr. hits the go-ahead home run. And I think there would have been a lot of teams in the last couple of years that there's a bobble in the outfield, that runner comes home to score, there's a missed tag. Didn't happen. And the Royals find a way to hang on 3-2. It was not an enjoyable game whatsoever. The only enjoyable part was that Freddy Fermin continues to be the most beloved Royal, I think, on this team. It's hilarious because last night, after I'm getting 20, 30 responses about Maikel Garcia, and if I would have told you last year at this point in time that Maikel Garcia was catching heat from the fan base, you would have been pretty shocked, because there have been a couple of guys that I think would be immune to the criticism in the same way that in Chiefs season, Patrick Mahomes is usually immune to any form of criticism. You'll blame everybody else before you'll blame that player. It's not really the same in baseball, right? Now, to the point about Patrick Mahomes, there's not many things you can criticize him for. I mean, he's the best quarterback right now in the game. He's one of the greatest quarterbacks, if not the greatest quarterback of all time. If I'm going to be biased, I am going to say he's the most talented and gifted quarterback we've ever seen. But that's a football segment I'm going off into here. What I mean in baseball, it's hard over the course of 6 months, 162 games, to be completely immune from criticism. If you would ask somebody that doesn't watch Royals baseball but knows about them, who's the one guy that's beloved by everybody, never has any form of criticism, the easy answer would be Bobby Witt Jr. or Cole Reagans. However, at least for some fans that follow me, that's not been the case. There have been fans that have said Bobby Witt Jr. has cost them games. Was it clutch? Believe me, I heard it all. Cole Reagans, after his start in Anaheim, it was, is he really a number one? See, this is the regression we're talking. Seth Lugo, same thing. Lugo had another quality start, and sucks for him that 2-run home run by Geloff was the deciding factor in his outing. But I've had complaints about Seth Lugo, the regression, when are the wheels going to fall off? And maybe that's not as harsh as I've seen on others. but I've seen stuff about Vinny, Garcia, Melendez, of course, Isbell, Renfroe, Adam Frazier, Garrett Hampson, Nick Lofton. He didn't have that scoop in the series against Baltimore way back in April. I got criticism there, but the one guy who has avoided all of it, Freddy Fermin. Freddy Fermin, to me, is the one guy that is just immune to the criticism. I can see all this talk about, the top guys on the team. There's more pressure, but I will say this. A backup catcher is always going to be really liked by the fan base because they play once a week. If they're like Freddie, they can produce once or twice a week. But now it really becomes a question, does Freddy Fermin deserve to play every single day? And I think there is an argument to be made for it. I understand that Salvador Perez is an icon. He is going to want to play behind the plate, and I don't envision a world in which Fermin is just going to move him to DH and Fermin's going to do 90% of the catching. I don't envision that. But I do think with the way this lineup has been this year, it's worth a shot, right? And I understand overexposure is a bad thing in baseball. You have a guy who's played 30, 40 games. He's not an everyday player. You give him everyday at-bats, and he shows why he's not an everyday player. However, I look at some of the guys coming off the bench, playing every once in a while, and I'm not sure one of them has truly stuck. We've seen Renfroe catch fire before the injury. Massey's going to be coming back soon. Renfroe, same thing. Melendez all of a sudden has looked a little bit better. Kyle Isbell, he's had his moments. Garrett Hampson's had his moments. Adam Frazier. We know there's usually 4 guys that play every single day, with the exception of today because Maikel Garcia got the day off. But Garcia, Bobby Witt Jr., Vinny, and Salvi all play every single day. The other 5, it's interchangeable. And because Freddie is a catcher, it does make it a little bit more difficult. But I almost wonder if you play Freddy Fermin more at DH or you flip-flop Salvi and him back and forth 50-50. We know how good of a defensive catcher Freddy Fermin is, but now he's an above-average league hitter. Okay, so you have something working here a little bit, and I almost think it's worth a shot over these next couple weeks to see what he looks like as an everyday player. Now, I understand that a part of having a backup catcher is knowing you've got a healthy backup catcher. You play Salvi and Freddie every single day. One of them gets banged up. Well, now you got to bring up somebody else to be thrust into that position. There's a less of a chance you have an injury to a guy like Freddy Fermin if he just plays once or twice a day. And to know in the back of your mind, if Salvi, as has happened a couple times this year, he gets banged up, well, Freddy Fermin can take his spot. Freddy Fermin is a guy that I think has the offensive production to at least get a look. However, I know in the back of a manager's mind, there's the fear of, okay, what happens if you play both of them and then Salvi gets hurt? Okay, they're both playing at the same time, and then Freddie gets hurt. Who are you going to catch? Now, I understand the other argument is, okay, well, what happens if Freddie's not playing, Salvi gets hurt, and then Freddie goes in and Freddie gets hurt? It's a weird thing with catchers or 2 catchers playing in the lineup every single day. I would love to see Freddy Fermin play every day. I just don't know if we're going to see it. I really don't. Maybe it's a matter of overexposure. I would probably expect him to be in the lineup tomorrow, which will be at that game, against Nathan Eovaldi and the Rangers, because you got to reward a guy that just had 2 solo home runs and was basically the only offense for a 9-inning game against a bad Oakland Athletics team. He's the reason you weren't swept today. I know Bobby Witt Jr. had the go-ahead home run, but Freddy Fermin, I feel like you got to toss him a bone. You got to give him the nod and say, even if he's not behind the plate, he's DHing tomorrow to see if he can continue to spark this offense a little bit. But he's such a cool story. A longtime minor leaguer. I didn't think much of Freddy Fermin when he got called up, but it's hard to ignore now. I think the sample size is big enough where he would be able to produce more than a backup catcher typically produces at this level. I understand that it's a lot of mixing matching, and I'd be curious what this lineup looks like once Massey and Renfroe comes back, if they kind of move it around with Maikel Garcia at the top of the order. But today, all the flowers deserve to go to Freddy Fermin. And he is the one guy that I think all of my followers, all of my listeners don't have a bad thing to say about. It was funny. One of my followers on Twitter said, well, did nobody give him criticism from grounding in the 2 double plays against the Yankees? And I'm being dead honest. No, nobody said a damn word about the 2 double plays because you like Freddie too much. And when Freddie comes through, like he did today, he had 3 hits and almost had a 3rd home run, by the way. I don't think the Royals have had a 3 home run game since Lorenzo Cain at Yankee Stadium, going back to 16 or 17, one of those years. But since then, nobody's done it, to my knowledge, not that I can quite remember. So it could have been Freddy Fermin. There's enough power there. There's enough juice there, and I would love to see him get more at-bats than he is right now. I think he's a big-time offensive contributor and at least worth a little bit longer of a look than just a backup catcher would typically get. Okay, we're going to take our first break of the show. When we come back, MJ Melendez is starting to heat up a little bit. Can he bottle up this West Coast road trip and take it back home with him to Kansas City, or at least just to Arlington? We'll dive into that next on Locked On Royals. You are tuned into Locked On Royals on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can find me on Twitter or X at JohnnyJ_15. That's at JOHNYJ_15. Before we go any further, want to give a shout out to a few of our sponsors today, starting with our title sponsor in Tax Network USA. Here on Locked On Royals, we pride ourselves on getting you the latest news for your team, whether it's the offseason, the draft, spring training, or the playoffs. It's just year-round. You know what else is year-round? Collection season. Just because tax season is over doesn't mean the IRS will stop coming after you for unfiled taxes. The IRS can garnish your wages, levy your bank accounts, and even seize your property. Don't let the IRS target you. Let the licensed professionals tax experts at Tax Network USA go to bat for you. With over 14 years of experience and A-plus rating by the Better Business Bureau, Tax Network USA saved their clients over $1 billion in tax debt. Whether you owe taxes, have complicated matters that require tax planning, or finally hit that parlay this season and need help correctly filing, call 1-800-549-1000 or visit tnusa.com/locked-on. You can see the link in this episode description below. We also want to mention Policygenius. A lot of life is unpredictable, but a good life insurance plan gives your family a financial safety net to protect you against some of the unknowns. Policygenius is the country's leading online insurance marketplace, and it makes choosing the right policy for your family easy and quick. With Policygenius, you can find life insurance policies that start at just $292 per year for $1 million in coverage. Some options are 100% online and let you avoid unnecessary medical exams. Policygenius helps you easily compare your options for America's top insurers in just a number of clicks. Their award-winning agents can even walk you through the process step by step. Your work life insurance policy may not offer enough protection for your family's needs, and even worse, it may not come with you if you leave your job. Get peace of mind by finding the right life insurance with Policygenius. Head to policygenius.com or click on the link in the description to get your free life insurance quotes and see how much you could save. That's policygenius.com. It's not just a few guys that I think we have seen have a resurgence in the last month or two. Let's call it a month or two. We've seen Kyle Isbell have his moments. He had in my opinion, a great series against the Yankees that went a little bit unnoticed because the Royals got their ass kicked. I think Dairon Blanco's had a couple of moments this year where he had a bit of a resurgence. Hunter Renfroe, probably the most notable guy to have that resurgence, and then he got hurt. Fouled a ball off his foot, I think 2 of them actually, and had a bone bruise in his toe, but he's soon to return, and hopefully he continues that trend. MJ Melendez was the one guy that never really hit his stride. He had a stretch in April where I think he had an 8 or 9 game hitting streak, and then after that, it torpedoed. And I mean, it really torpedoed to the point where I think a lot of people were asking the question, is he even worth keeping around? Not just in Omaha, I mean at all. Drew Waters gets in this conversation, CJ Alexander, of you just got to get somebody else up here. But I feel like I was honest about this. And I know that I'm a big MJ Melendez supporter. I will probably be an MJ Melendez supporter until he's no longer playing for this team. And even then, I'd find a way to root for him. I think he's an easy player to root for. He's a hustle guy. Even today, he hits a ground ball to the left side and head first dives into first base in the 9th inning. I don't always think it's the best thing to head first dive, but he's still running as hard as anybody on this team. And, now he's got a little bit more confidence. He's seen the hits fall. He had a big grand slam at Dodger Stadium. There have been, great aspects in the last week that have shown a little bit of a turnaround. And I know the honesty I gave was the Royals know their players a lot better than we do. We have our takes on players. We will give up on players quicker than a coach will or a front office member will. We will also champion players maybe quicker than the front office will or the coaches will. Think about Drew Waters, for example. A lot of us were ready to call Drew Waters the fix in the outfield. You know, get rid of Renfroe or MJ Melendez. He's hitting .330 in Omaha. Give him a chance. The Royals never really viewed him like that. With MJ Melendez, when it got down to 150, 160, it's why is he still playing every single day? And the Royals coaching staff, probably in the back of their minds, thought, well, remember what he did at the second half last year? If we can get second half MJ Melendez at this point in the season, our lineup gets astronomically better. And I think that, to me, the ceiling, the potential, the possibility of what he could become was always going to stick in their minds. That if you looked at guys in the minor league level, you looked at Waters, you looked at Alexander, you looked at Nate Eaton, and you looked at MJ Melendez, and you said of those guys, the best version of them, the highest ceiling of them, which guy gives us a better chance of improving our lineup? I think it was unanimous. I think it was an easy choice for them, and they all said MJ Melendez. Because MJ Melendez has 25 home run power. He's athletic enough. His defense has improved. His walk rate can be better than all three of them combined. And maybe that's me overreacting to a week. I totally get it. But I think that I've been pretty firm in the stance of if he does become second half MJ Melendez, that can be the difference in this lineup going into a 5-game lull to maybe just a 3-game lull, or a 3-game losing streak only is 1 loss, and then you bounce back with another win. At the beginning of the year, when MJ Melendez was hitting, we saw what the offense looked like. That it was about 6 guys deep. When they're struggling, it's about 3 guys deep now. But if Melendez can bottle this, take it to Arlington, continue to improve, bring it back home, and right before the All-Star break, he's got a 20-game stretch where he can go, I finally know what I'm doing at the plate. I know what pitch I'm looking for. I feel comfortable. And I think it's undeniable how much more comfortable he looks at the plate right now. It is only about 7 to 10 games worth, but we haven't been able to say that for a long time. And this was not quite around the time he started to figure it out last year. Last year, it was pretty much from the get-go in the second half. But if he can start a little bit earlier now, and then he can really take off, even right before the All-Star break, this lineup I feel a lot better about. And I feel better about playing MJ Melendez every single day. And I hope that we get to that point where he is playing every single day, regardless if it's a right-hander or if it's a left-hander. He starts going the other way. He starts working the count. He's not missing as much on the fastballs up in the zone. I think right now, you have to feel kind of in the same way you did about Renfroe, where it sneaks up on you. I know for Renfroe, that really snuck up on me. You know, when he started his trend on May 12th, I remember looking up on May 28th and going, it's been a really good 2 to 3 weeks for Hunter Renfroe, and the numbers kind of surprised me. It's like not only is he performing well, he's been one of the more valuable hitters in this lineup. And if you get Renfroe back and he keeps that pace, if you get Massey back, and Massey's 100% healthy, and he continues to thrive like he was before the injury. And then you get MJ Melendez going, and let's say you get Michael Garcia back on track. All right, there is 7 guys who you feel confident with. The other 2, it is what it is. Right? Am I missing there? The other 2, it'd be Kyle Isbell and who's ever DHing, which maybe for our first segment, you throw Freddy Fermin there. There's 8 guys you feel somewhat good about. I know, though, for the course of 162, you don't have 8 guys hitting well at the same time. But if you have some guys that pull themselves out of the gutter, out of the depths, like MJ Melendez was, like Hunter Renfroe was, it makes you feel a little bit more confident of, oh, no, Salvi's slumping, Bobby Witt Jr. slumping, but we can pick up the slack with our number 4, number 5, number 6 hitter. That, I think, is the goal. It is only 7 to 10 games here. But I don't think it's a coincidence that after that game-tying 2-run home run against Seattle, that we've seen MJ Melendez look like a much better hitter. To see that happen for him, and even go back to Friday when he had the 3-run home run and the wild 8-run comeback against the Mariners, that game to me is one you could also pinpoint of, maybe that was what got him going. The power's come back. He's walking a little bit more. He's hitting the ball really hard. Maybe it is the start of something for MJ Melendez. And even if it's a little bit right now, you do have to start somewhere. Okay, before our final segment, I want to give a shout out to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. When we come back, I got to tip my cap to a Royals bullpen guy who slammed the door today, but has also looked really good in the month of June. That is Chris Stratton, and we're going to talk about him next on Locked On Royals. You are tuned into Locked On Royals on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson. You can always find me on Twitter or X at JohnnyJ_15. That's at JOHNYJ_15. And find us on wherever you get your podcasts. That can be Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts. We're on Odyssey, and we're on YouTube. Just be sure to hit that follow button and subscribe. Want to talk about a few of our sponsors, a few more sponsors today, starting with Stitch Fix. You know that instant confidence boost you get from an outfit that makes you look really good? That's what I get with Stitch Fix. With Stitch Fix, you get a stylist who understands your style, size, and budget. They do all the shopping for you, and it's the easiest way to update your wardrobe this season. Easily upgrade your wardrobe this year with a professional stylist that helps you find new, on-trend favorites that will work for you. My stylist sends just the right prices, and the fit is on point, and it's like they have the style ready for you, whatever you may be looking for. Don't know how they do it, but they just get me. And I am somebody that, as you've probably seen from the videos, I don't dress to impress a lot, but with Stitch Fix, they're always going to make sure they have me covered. They make you feel as good as you look. Now's the best time to get started at stitchfix.com/MLB and get $100 off. That's $25 off on your first 4 fixes for a limited time only. That's stitchfix.com/MLB for $100 off. Stitchfix.com/MLB. You must redeem within 7 days of sign up. This offer does not include kids' fixes. Also want to let you know about one of our local sponsors here in PXG Golf. Guys, girls, who's ever listening out there, it is summertime. It is golf season, along with baseball season, of course. But I know once you get done with playing baseball like I did way back in high school, you might have switched to golf, and maybe you've never been able to perfect that swing or have the right clubs to work with. Well, PXG Golf is going to be able to handle that for you. They made me a believer, and they'll do the same for every golfer in Kansas City. Visit pxg.com/LockedOnRoyals to schedule your fitting at PXG Kansas City, 7517 West 119th Street in Overland Park. Get fitted for any club, and you'll get a dozen golf balls free. That's pxg.com/LockedOnRoyals to schedule your fitting. pxg.com/LockedOnRoyals. The limit is 1 dozen golf balls per person. This promotion ends on June 30th. The other terms and conditions may apply, but you can see their store for details. I'll be completely honest that today, after the Zach Geloff home run off Seth Lugo, my confidence level in the Royals winning that game was pretty low. And maybe it was because of the demeanor I carried last night in the episode that we had. Maybe it was just I was being overly negative, but I didn't have any confidence. I looked at the A's bullpen. You got to worry about Mason Miller. You got to worry about Ursig. You got to worry about Austin Adams. There were a lot of guys I didn't want to face with the Royals trailing that game. Fortunately, right after they had that play at the plate, in which Dairon Blanco got it to Adam Frazier, then to Salvador Perez to throw out a backup catcher. By the way, I have no idea why Oakland decided to send. I don't remember his first name. He was ejected. But McCann, I actually thought for a moment, I was like, did I miss something where James McCann? This was before I'd seen him pop up on screen. I just saw the name McCann pop up and heard catcher. I thought, did James McCann get traded to the A's and I missed it? It almost blew me away. But then this McCann guy played today. He got ejected, arguing a pitch that was a strike. The entire Oakland dugout was clearly not happy. And it's a moot point, really, for the Royals because the Royals got away with the win. Maybe Oakland fans don't feel the same way about it. But McCann gets thrown out at the plate, and that was maybe the spark this team needed. Bobby Witt Jr. has the go-ahead home run, and you're just feeling so gross about this series that it's been such a dogfight for the Royals to put away a team like Oakland. It shouldn't be this difficult. Seth Lugo was cruising. He had struck out the first 2 guys in the 7th, and then he gives up a double to Lawrence Butler, and then the home run to Zach Geloff to tie the game. So it turns over to the bullpen. And when it gets turned over to the bullpen, James MacArthur gives up that hit, in which the Royals have to relay at the plate and get the out. He goes back out there for the 8th. He walks the leadoff guy on 4 pitches. Then he gets to a 3-2 count. Fortunately, picks off. I think it was Max Schumann who walked on 4 pitches. So he picks off Max Schumann. And then J.J. Bleday rolls one over to Vinny Pasquantino. 2 outs, nobody on. And then he gets into a jam again. He walks another hitter. And then a base hit. You have to bring it on Angel Serpa. Serpa gets the job done. But then you go to the 9th. And Serpa, he does do his job. He gets a first pitch ground out. Bobby Witt Jr. bobbles the ball. Error. Great way to start the 9th. Leadoff guy's back on. Then Serpa does get the strikeout, in which McCann was ejected from on the dugout after being pulled for a pinch hitter. Langelier singles, first and second, 1 out. All right. Then they go to Chris Stratton. And I think for a lot of Royals fans that hadn't really been paying attention when Chris Stratton went into the game, you're thinking, not this guy. Anybody but this guy. Why not Schreiber? Well, Schreiber didn't look good last night. What other right-hander do you want in there? For me, I was fine with Chris Stratton going in there because Chris Stratton has been really good in the month of June. He just really hadn't pitched in a high-leverage spot. But this is who Chris Stratton has been, kind of in the same way we talked about Michael Garcia being streaky. Chris Stratton will have that blow-up game, and you go, I can't believe they're still throwing him out there. And then he'll go on a stretch like this. And this stretch has been 7 or 8 straight outings in June, and he's only given up 1 run. So only 1 run, and he gets thrust into this spot. First and second, 1 out, 1-run game. Pinch hitter Daz Cameron's up. And here comes Chris Stratton. And he did what some guys couldn't do all series against Oakland. He just pounded the zone. He got ahead of hitters. And he put those hitters in a tougher spot than anybody else was. He gets the flyout. It's first and third. And at that point, I'm thinking the advantage now, you kind of had lulled the momentum that Oakland had. You know, you get first and second, 1 out. You get another walk there. You're probably not feeling good whatsoever about the Royals winning that game. But to get that out and for it to be a flyout, that was huge. So then first and third, and he gets the pop out to end the game to Kyle Isbell. Chris Stratton deserves the hat tip, as did Freddy Fermin, as does MJ Melendez, giving lots of flowers today to some of the guys that had played. And don't get me wrong, this was a bad series. This was a stain of a series. But I should have probably mentioned this last night, and I didn't want to do it before the game because I didn't want there to be a jinx on there because I'd already done that the day before by saying the Royals had a really good chance to take the final 2 games of the series because of the way Cole Reagans had looked, how Seth Lugo is on the road, and that Oakland hasn't won back-to-back games since the beginning of May. So I jinxed them. Didn't want to do this today, but basically what had to happen was Minnesota to lose, the Royals to win. All of a sudden, they're back in second place, and they have a 1.5 game lead over Boston because Boston didn't play today. And now don't you feel totally different about going into this Friday series? Yes, to Arlington where the Royals do not play well, but Boston now can't take that spot from you unless you lose and they win. And they're now going on the road to Cincinnati, and a Cincinnati team that can always sneak up on people. You know, Minnesota, they're going to go to Oakland. Maybe they have the same issues the Royals did, but they dropped back-to-back games against Tampa in extra innings. So Minnesota kind of slips up right as they'd taken that possession of second place from Kansas City. It's a long season. It really is. And the ups and downs are going to happen. But it's amazing to me that as bad as the series was, the Royals leave with now a 1.5 lead for a wild card spot, and now they have a half-game lead over Minnesota, jump back into second place. That could all change tomorrow, and you're back to where you were on what was that, Wednesday? Yeah, Wednesday. So it can always change. But today, it was good to see that a lot of movement happened in the playoff picture. And now we are starting to see the American League wild card race get condensed a little bit. Because Boston swept Toronto, Toronto's now slipped away a little bit. Tampa is catching some steam because they took 2 of 3 from Minnesota, but that helped the Royals because Minnesota dropped back a little bit. Cleveland continues to win. Don't know what to tell you about them. I would more so just keep looking at playoff spots because they are a machine right now, and they took 2 of 3 from Seattle, I believe it was. They're a buzzsaw. They just continue to surprise everybody. What a job Stephen Vogt has done. But I think a lot of people would say what a job Matt Quatrero has done, even in the midst of this bad stretch for the Royals. they avoid the sweep, still haven't been swept this year, still haven't lost 4 in a row this year, to my knowledge, right? Unless that had happened on going into the Yankees series, might have already lost 4 in a row. I think it's the sweep, because I think that Yankee series losing the first 3, that had been 4 in a row. Yeah, that is correct. They lost 4 in a row, still haven't been swept. Got that twisted around a little bit. But now they're going to go and try to either sweep the Rangers or take a series from the Rangers, something they haven't done in a long time in Arlington. I'll be down there this weekend. Going to be at the game tomorrow night. Very excited for it. So I will talk to you tomorrow from Arlington. But as for today, it's going to do it for another edition of Locked On Royals on the Locked On Podcast Network. I've been your host, Jack Johnson. Be sure to follow me on Twitter or X at JohnnyJ_15. Tomorrow, it'll be a Mailbag Friday, so get your questions ready to send over to me a little bit later on tonight. But until tomorrow, where we answer all those questions, you take it easy, Kansas City.